we need to orientate the leadership of Gauteng on the fundamentals of our struggle, because it is not on the basis of rhetoric that they will win the minds and hearts and souls of our people. But it is a leadership that is politically grounded, that will appreciate the difficult questions that are confronting the people of Gauteng and the EFF, and the people that can be in a position to explain the immigration question that characterized a lot of corners in Gauteng. Our people are being misled by the ANC that the problem in their lives begin with fellow Africans. This is an election tactic by ANC that has failed to give our people houses in Alexander after promising them 1 million houses in 2019. So those people who are looking for houses in Alexander, they are looking for houses from Zimbabweans who have never promised them 1 million houses. But a man who promised them 1 million houses can visit Alexander tomorrow without any problem. There won't be any throwing of stones, there won't be burning of tires. If anything, the people of Alexander will be fighting, climbing on each other to reach out to the man who promised and never delivered to them 1 million houses. And when the man leaves and the problem remains, you, the people of Alexander, will now turn on Africans for your misery and your pain, yet you know where the headquarters of the ANC is. So we must, as Pan-Africanists, declare here and now that Africans are not our enemies, that our enemy is white monopoly capital, that our enemy is the owners of the means of production, that our enemy is those who stole our land and are still in possession of stolen goods, that Africans are in struggle with us to reclaim that which belongs to Africa. In Zimbabwe, the crux of the problem was the taking over of the land in 2000. Zimbabwe is not struggling because it did anything wrong except the takeover of the land. As a result, Zimbabwe is under sanctions and it's unable to supply the most basic needs of our people. So as Pan-Africanists, we have a responsibility to appreciate that Africans are not our enemies. Our enemy is white capital, including the ANC, is not an enemy. It's a tool that is used by the enemy to perpetuate the interest of the enemy forces. So instead of saying the ANC is an enemy, we must know that the ANC is like a used condom that will be dumped at any time once they finished using it, because they don't love the ANC. So it can be that when we fight with the ANC or whatever black formations, we now think that our differences with them are not reconcilable. Our differences with the ANC at some point will be reconciled and will be one big African family where all of us who are students of Marx, Lenin, and Fanon will appreciate that we are not enemies of each other. So it can't be that because there are not enough beds in a country where there's too much corruption and that the bed is taken by a Zimbabwean who's sick, we then attack the Zimbabwean who's sick. But the ANC should have known that there is a problem in Zimbabwe and therefore strengthen the capacity of South Africa to accommodate, if needs arise, the people of Zimbabwe. You can't say there are not enough resources when there is too much corruption that is going on in the country. So that money that they are stealing could have actually bought more bed that we and our African brothers and sisters can share because we've got some resources. You must not behave like that rich aunt who always, when there are functions at home, behaves like she's the best of them all in the family. When one day we'll need each other as family members. So we are family members with the Zimbabweans, the people of Lesotho and all of that. Those who come with crime must be isolated and be dealt with as criminals. Their nationality is not of significance because was it going to be taken into consideration during mitigation of sentencing, whether you are South African or not, after committing crime? That will never be taken into consideration. What is taken into consideration is the seriousness of the crime committed, and therefore will make sure that those people are punished accordingly. But you can't brush all of our African brothers and sisters as people who are engaged in drugs. Because Julius Nyerere, Nkwame Nkrumah, Muammar Gaddafi, Robert Mugabe, all of them will be turning in their graves that Africans, that they seek to unite and liberated from colonialism for a very long time, have actually turned against each other. And at the center of such a contestation is to work for a white person. When you say they are taking our jobs, can I have my water there? When you say they are taking our jobs, who created those jobs? It's a white man. So you are actually fighting to work for a white man. None of you has ever argued that they've taken the banks, they've taken the land, they've taken the industries, they've taken anything except that they've taken jobs. The argument of jobs, it's an argument that comes from people who dream small. Their biggest ambition is to get a job. So you can't be in the EFF and your ambition is to get a job. In the EFF, we seek the ownership of strategic means of the economy. Instead of being employees, we want to be the employers. And then the white people must work for us because we are the owners of the means of production. So why fight to serve the master when you can become a master through a political program that seeks to reclaim that which belongs to us? It doesn't matter who comes from where. Every sick person must be helped. After the MEC of Limpopo said whatever she said to a woman who was sitting on a dead bed. What followed was the blocking of people from entering hospitals if they didn't show their identity. And what was unfortunate was the whole incident, but they stopped a vendor speaking woman and declared her non-South African because she's dark. And on the basis of that, they could not allow her to get the services she's paying tax for. So if they are coming for dark-skinned people, it's no longer xenophobia. They are now going to the stage of tribalism because the people generally in the north are dark, and therefore the north will be the first to be attacked, and then from there they will go and attack the Zulus and all of that because they will say you don't belong here. So it moves from xenophobia into tribalism. So it ought to be stopped at the level of xenophobia before it becomes tribalistic. Once they are done with tribalism, then they are going to regionalism. You're not from here. You are from that side of the country, that part of the country. You can see with the ANC nominations now to conference, there is no province that is not nominating itself in the top 6 because they've degenerated to politics of regionalism. They've degenerated to the politics of tribalism, that they cannot see other potential leaders outside themselves. And that's what our society will become if we're not careful with that type of conduct. Our struggle is a struggle for socialism against capitalism. Our struggle is a struggle of black consciousness against white racism. And therefore, we do not have a struggle of anti-Africans and anti-blacks. And if you do that, you do not belong to the EFF. Comrades, we must conscientize society, but we cannot conscientize society with people who are not conscious themselves. And therefore, you must become the best in society that is appreciating the conditions that characterize the living conditions of our people in those communities. Once you have an appreciation of such, and that you have come to understand the founding manifesto of the EFF and all its schools of thought, Fanon, Marx, and Lenin, and even beyond that, you ought to read material in defense of capitalism because you can't fight against something you don't know. You ought to know what is capitalism and what are the dangers of capitalism and how will socialism and ultimately communism resolve these problems when we defeat capitalism. We need highly politically charged and highly politically conscious leadership of the EFF. And one of the understanding of such leadership is the leadership that understands that forming an organization, you don't form it for yourself. It is not a foundation. It's not Nelson Mandela Foundation. It's not Julius Malema Foundation. And it will be an irresponsible statement for anyone who was there when we formed the EFF that we formed it and therefore they hijacked it. That is the most politically illiterate person, that we have never formed an organization that will belong to us until we die. Lenin teaches us about democratic centralism, that the decisions of the higher structure are binding on lower structures. But before those decisions are taken, we ought to canvass the views of the people on the ground before the higher structure takes place. So we did that when we were conducting the BGAs, the BPAs, consulting our people and our members as to what should become the decision of the Provincial People's Assembly. And members through consultation told you that Dunga and the collective will be the leadership of the EFF. Now, we come at this level, at the highest level, after consultation with the lower structures of organization. We now take a decision. This decision we have taken, it's final, because it's a decision of a higher structure which is binding on all members of the EFF and structures of the EFF in Gauteng. Contestation does not mean enmity. Contestation means that our members are spoiled of choice and they need to choose anyone they so wish to choose, because there was many options and many people who could have chosen from. And anyone who see contestation as a declaration of enmity, that person lacks what we speak about when we say the leadership at this level must be leadership that is politically conscious. But those who get elected, they too must never think that they've emerged victorious against their enemies, because there is no enemy agent inside this hall. We are all members of the EFF. Be careful to want to be elected with your friends, because that is the beginning of killing of the organization. The organization does not work on the basis of friendship. If you elect friends and tomorrow you go to a social gathering together and the following day there is a PCT and there are no minutes, you are unable to call them to order because you were together last night in the same place, and therefore they could not produce the minutes. You don't have to love a person with capacity who can discharge this responsibility honestly and through dedication. Whether you love the person or not, the question should always be, does this person love the EFF? Can this person be the best secretary? Can this person not compromise and bring the organization into disrepute? Does this person understand and appreciate and live and practice the revolutionary code of conduct of the EFF? If he ticks all the boxes, you might not like him, but he's a good leader. And therefore, you ought to give that person an opportunity to lead you, even if you don't like them personally, even if you are not friends with those people personally. We must refuse this thing of relegating women in the EFF into positions of deputy secretary and treasurer. We must make sure that as we grow the organization, we appreciate that women can actually lead like men because they are at the same level. Women are not sub-members of the EFF. They are full members of the EFF. So we ought to find it in ourselves to have an appreciation that the liberation of women will be led by women themselves, because part of our engagement and struggle is to liberate women. So you can't liberate women in their absence. They ought to be there, they must be visible, and they must lead from the front. But we must throw it back to women, because it's a conference like this where women constitute 57, if not 60% of the conference. If you come together as a caucus of women and say we are strictly going to elect a top 5 of women alone, and we are going to make sure that these men come and beg us to include them. Why can't women on their own unite and use their majority to undermine an agenda that seeks to make women sub-members of organization? So if we elect women as treasurers and deputy secretaries, you must know that the women out there will never have confidence on our leadership. That this is the organization that says it will fight for us and liberate us, but it can't do it internally through action by electing women into leadership. There is nothing we can do, by the way. It's democracy. But this democracy must be exercised by people who have a clear political consciousness. Because we've seen in the recent past that people celebrate the death of a woman who presided over the genocide of black people in Africa and in South Africa in particular. The wars of resistance were against the British. And these people who are here today is because they were doing what they did to us through the blessings of this woman. You can't say we don't want borders, we don't want colonialism, we want a decolonized education. May her soul rest in peace, in one sentence. That is a political confusion. The position of the EFF reawakened the whole world that these are the crimes that were committed by these people. And those who commit crime, even in their dead, we must never celebrate them. We must remind them that they've stolen that which belongs to us. So there's no one who's going to declare flags to be flying at half-mast here in South Africa. If he there makes a mistake of declaring that the flags must fly at half-mast, we're going to look for those flags and make them to fly high, because we'll never allow the celebration of our colonizer. People must do the right thing when they are still alive, so that when they are dead, their good will follow them. It can't be that you want to become a good person and be praised because you are dead. We must never allow that. We remain a conquered nation, and that conquering comes from our colonizer led by Britain and the Queen's family. And we must not be ashamed to say we do not mourn the death of a person who supported slavery of our people. We do not mourn a person who died wearing our stolen diamond on her head, because that will be tantamount to celebrating criminals who die in possession of stolen goods. So they must know we are not with them, and we are not even going to shed any crocodile tears. We are not going to be pretentious. And if Cyril has given them condolences, he has done that condolences on behalf of himself and his nose, not the people of South Africa. So when you meet here, I think, DP, perhaps you have been able to provide solutions through the commissions where we went, because commissions are not just a passing time program, are very serious, because that's where we discuss the future of South Africa and the EFF in particular in small groups. Why do we do that in small groups? is to allow even those who are scared to speak in big crowds, to speak in small groups and share their ideas on how we can better the province of Gauteng. How many million? 7 million people who are not registered to vote here. 7 million people are not registered to vote. But what is even more disturbing is that in the 1 million member campaign, your regions have not met their targets. So perhaps you are not meeting target because you are scared of quorum. That if you recruit more, you might not reach quorum. So quorum is gone now. When you go back, you don't have an excuse. You must make sure you recruit the real numbers to reach the target. Because it is Gauteng that is going to deliver South Africa. All of us must know that Gauteng is what will liberate South Africa. And without a grounded EFF that is based on the quality, highly recruited members, then the organization will not have the future. We asked you when we started, do not do signature campaign because it undermines the growth of the organization and it's unable to tell us if we are strong there or not. People go and do signature campaigns and thought we will not know. The system exposes them and we have since suspended them. It is those people who commit treason in the EFF by lying to the organization and creating an impression that the organization is alive when it is not alive. So you always have to be honest to each other, to yourself, and give the honest report to the leadership so that they can see how do we intervene. We have a problem of corruption in South Africa. And we've started to have a problem of corruption in the EFF now. That when people are sent to the leadership of the EFF, who are leading at regions or provinces and all of that, people will demand money in exchange to helping those people with whatever problems they are confronted with in those municipalities. We can never fight successfully against corruption if we in the leadership of the EFF are going to accept bribes and become part of palace politics and corrupt elite of South Africa. You ought to stay away from corrupt people and do not take unsolicited, even solicited gifts from dodgy characters who may be in trouble tomorrow. And because they are in trouble, they will drag you into those troubles and you will drag the EFF into those troubles. Corruption must be fought from inside here, internally in the EFF, if it raises its ugly head. We must chop the neck of corruption in the EFF if we're going to win corruption outside the EFF. The whole councillors, is it Imfulen of CDB, where a man is hired to be a researcher without an interview, without the caucus knowing, without anyone in the leadership knowing, but this is the researcher of the EFF. You can see that there is a corrupt individual who has been engaged in a corrupt program to corrupt the organization. And we will not tolerate such people in the EFF. Well, we don't care how powerful you are and who are your friends in the province or national or whatsoever. Once you engage in such shenanigans, you will regret the day you joined the EFF, because we will not allow corruption in the EFF. We will never be led by corrupt members of society. We need to recruit the most cleanest members of society. We must be amongst us here. There must be highly respected members of society, not crooks that are rejects of other political parties, and they find the EFF as if it's a heaven of corruption. You will never defeat Phala Phala if you are Phala Phala of the EFF. So you can't demand that leadership must be held accountable and the standard must be very high. But when it comes to you, you are unable to accept that you are engaged in shenanigans. Fighters, we must not allow the president of this country to lower the standards of accountability. When it is Malema's turn, the standard of accountability is high. When it's Zuma's turn, the standard of accountability is high. But a man can put money in the mattress and then go and speak there in the ANC conference that those are the proceeds of auction. And then after some weeks, he forgot the first answer. That's how liars work. He says, no, there is a man who came, unidentifiable man, who came with cash and gave to my domestic worker. He was buying buffaloes. What happened to the auction? We're given two different answers on one question. The question has not changed. The Reserve Bank is unable to tell us. SARS is unable to tell us. NPA is unable to tell us. The Hawks are unable to tell us. And if institutions of the state are unable to give an account as to what happened, then this is a confirmation that we are presided by a gangster. We've become a gangster state, and that's how gangsters operate. You steal the stolen good by another gangster, then that gangster is coming to look for you without reporting you to the police. That's what he did. He came with illegal money. The criminals stole the money. He now organized his gangster to go and look for those other gangsters who stole his stolen goods. So, if we've gone to that level where that gangster of the president even uses the resources of the state to go and look for another gangster, we are becoming a lawlessness society. And when we become the lawlessness society, the most victims of a lawlessness society is women. They are going to be raped, they are going to be killed, and there will not be anywhere to go to report such nonsensical acts, because those who are perpetuating those things will have the highest form of connection. There is a gangster in Venda there called, what is his name? In Toyando, they even have a club, nightclub, Jerusalem. Jerusalem, gangster, also printed T-shirt and donated money into the CR17. A well-known gangster, that he was prepared to even take the money of a well-established gangsterism in Toyando and even printed money to support CR17 at that time. So if he can accept such monies from such people, it means it's not different from them. They are one thing, and that's how they survive. Comrades, I've seen some of you are flirting with journalists. You're flirting with very dangerous people. That you can go and talk to journalists about us. Journalists are members of the EFF, some of them. You are their leader if you are at that level. And then you become a source to a member, a leader who reduces himself to a source. And then in the Sunday world, they don't call you a source. They call you a mole because doesn't want to be identified because he will be victimized, a mole. You are flirting with journalists is going to destroy you as a leader of the organization. We are no friends with journalists. Neither are we enemies with journalists. Journalists, without telling you who gave them the story, you just read the story, you will know where the story comes from. Because if they write about all of us, including you, the source, and then they write very bad about all of us, and then they leave you in the same story as a good person who's being denied this and that, clearly it's you who told them the story. That's why they can't write bad about you. I'm not bragging about it. I started doing this thing at 9 years. I'm now 42. It means I've got 30 years doing this work. You just arrived now in politics. Your first political party was EFF. And then you get excited by journalists. You go and talk about me. And you think I will not know who speak this nonsense about me. I will know. And your punishment will be a very painful, small pain that will be forever. Because once you fight the EFF in the papers, you must know you have declared war against us. And we will win against you. You will never win against the organization. We want this province to be united. And therefore, those who go around wanting to divide it through the newspapers and through WhatsApp and Facebook and all manner of things, you will only have yourself to blame. If you are not elected and you have been writing nonsense about the EFF on Facebook, it's good you are not elected, because members have seen that you do not have the discipline of being elected as a leader. What type of leadership writes about organizational internal issues on Facebook when there is a platform like this where you can express yourself without fear or favor? And even if it's going to take time for conference to come or whatever, there is no problem. Hold on into that issue. We are not going anywhere. We are here to stay. When that time comes, you will be able to raise that issue internally. Comrades, you might have expressed a view in this conference through who you preferred as a leader, or through a particular issue you raised in the commission. It got rejected. You are the one who's going to appreciate and accept this leadership and go and announce it out there as if you supported them. Why? It's a discipline of the organization that I have expressed my views. They were defeated. I still hold those views. I'll continue to advance those views internally until I've persuaded a lot to agree with what I actually stand for. Many might have tried to stand before and lost, and today they are elected. That's how the organization works. When it doesn't elect you now, it doesn't mean you are a reject. It just means we are not ready. Not you. You are ready. You can even feel it in your blood. That's why you are going up and down. No problem. You are ready. But we are not ready to be led by you. There is no problem in membership expressing itself in that way. So do not impose yourself on the people. The people know their leaders and they will choose them accordingly. There are a lot of people that, would have left the EFF, some former leaders and some former councillors, who, when they were not nominated as councillors or got defeated in conferences, they completely withdrew from the organization. We deliberately went to fetch them right at the door of exit and said to them, you are making a terrible mistake because you are a good leader of our organization. Do not become impatient. So this organization will never eat its own children. Once you see this sea, the Red Sea rejecting a person, you must know that we cooked a stone in this pot and then we cooked the head of this fighter in this pot. The stone became ripe first before the head of this fighter. So we can't do anything with such people. When you leave, it's back to the ground. There is no time to rest. It's to make sure that the leadership of the EFF recruits and make sure all those 7 million unregistered voters, they vote. Because now we're recruiting 1 million. Next year, we are going to do public training of those all 1 million members of the EFF. After that, they are the ones who are going to do door to door with their gadgets, going to register people in their own homes, because you can register online. We go with our own resources, register those people. And we must register as many as possible. So meaning DP, the target of 1 million is not done. When it's finished in December, we announce how many members we got. We now give you a new task. This region has got a responsibility to register so many members before end of December. So many voters, so that we know how many voters have we registered as the EFF directly. Because now we are surviving through other people's voters. Those people who are on that ballot, on the voters' roll, are not our people. They were never registered by us, but we expect them to vote for us. The only way to be voted is by taking those who love you to go and register. And you know, I've got so many people on the voters' roll that I have directly registered myself. 2024 is going to be a repeat of 1994. It's going to change the political landscape in South Africa. Politics of South Africa will never be the same after the election of 2024. We will not win them in 2024. We win them before 2024, so that when we enter 2024, we know that we are indeed cruising nicely. We must not enter 2024 panicking whether we'll sustain our percentage, whether we'll grow our percentage. No. It must be, we have registered 5 million voters. When we count our votes, we are going to count from 5 million upward, because this 5 million were sure about it. We recruited it, we convinced it, they said they will vote for us. You can't recruit 1 million people who are paying 10 rand and fail to register 5 million people who are paying nothing. They are in the comfort of their homes. You just go there, talk to them, convince them, and make them they register from the comfort of their own homes. We need an activist EFF, an EFF that lives amongst the people, that knows that its shield against the enemy agents and enemy forces are the masses themselves. We do not want palace politics. We do not want to become an ANC light. We cannot replace a tendency with a tendency. At the level where we are, you can't be a member of the PCT who must be convinced to go and do the work of the organization. Why were you accepting to be a member of the PCT and the RCT? Leaders who lead don't lead through occupying comfortable seats. Leadership is a permanent trouble to you because you want things done and done the correct way and done to the best of your ability. So, comrades, you are the ones who can make sure the EFF becomes a powerful force here in Gauteng. ANC won the previous elections in Gauteng with 50.1. They are leading the legislature with 1 member. There is no miracle that is going to happen that will make the ANC to gain more. Because even after 50.1, they came again to lose the metros. So it's a sign that Gauteng is available, is waiting for you. And if you are going to be lazy, you accept to be a leader and you are told to go and launch a branch in Hammanskraal. Mara, you are a member of a PCT. A PCT member can't say a place is far, referring to a place in Gauteng. There is no far place to a provincial leader in Gauteng. All of them belong to you. You are going to service all those places. If you didn't know, it's not too late to resign so that we replace you immediately while we are still here. So fighters, let's unite our movement. Let's become one thing. We only have ourselves. You can't say you will fight Ramaphosa and expect nice things from the media or the establishment. Once you say you don't want Ramaphosa, Ramaphosa must go. You must know you declared war against the establishment. And it's going to come very hard on all of us. But we must not be scared. Because to die for the truth is what will make you a martyr. You must never die a coward. You must die with your boots on, and you must always be on the side of the weak and on the side of the masses. So we know very well that in the EFF, we speak the truth to power, and we do so unashamedly. We will get this president to account, whether they like it or not. Don't think that when they protect CR17 and say they are sealing CR17, it means they are protecting Ramaphosa. They are not protecting Ramaphosa. They are protecting those whites who are on the CR17 list, who donated to Ramaphosa. They don't want those whites to be known that they are the ones who put money there. They have no time for a black skin. If there were no whites in the list of CR17, that list was going to be released at any time. For Ramaphosa to even think that whites love them is misleading himself. They don't love him. They love themselves and they know that they are in those lists of CR17. Rupert organizes a golf day here in Mpumalanga annually. He's got a farm there called it's a golf estate. If you go to that golf day of Rupert, you will not find less than 15 judges going to play golf with Rupert on that day. Golf is a very difficult sport. They pair you with someone. So depending on which judge Rupert wants to talk to, he looks at them and says, pair me with this one. It depending on how many holes are there. You are going to walk with that person the whole day. Rupert working with 2 judges at the golf day, the whole day. What are they talking about? So judges must stop attending events and golf days of rich people, especially the white monopoly capital that owns everything in South Africa. The judges must stop networking and inviting politicians into their houses. What do judges want from business? Because you must choose if you want to be a judge or you want to be a businessman. Look at what happened here on a civil case against Sibanye Waters or whatever and Ramaphosa by Marikana widows. Judge Lamont was a shareholder in the Sibanye Waters. When that was brought to his attention, he said, I have resigned. It doesn't matter whether you have resigned or not. You've got a particular special relationship with that company which is manipulating our people. So judges have got shares in big companies that are exploiting our people. Why are they judges? Why can't we pass the law that blocks judges from becoming businessmen while they are judges? Because judges are paid for the rest of their lives, even when they go on retirement. We still give them a salary. When they die, if they are married, the surviving spouse still continues to get half of what that partner was getting. What more do they want? Ba re nyaka eng? Ka hore re ba fa tšhelete until the grave. Even when they are in the grave, we still give them money. Yet they are available to take more money in the form of shares and then tell us that they are neutral. You will never be neutral when you are in bed with monopolies of South Africa. Remember, they are not in shareholders of some BEE part company. They are shareholders in big companies, in the banks. A bank just takes a decision to close your account because they wrote a wrong story about you. There is no judgment against you. Nothing has ever been proven. A bank closes your account. You go to a judge. Little do you know that the wife of a judge is holding the shares in that bank you are litigating against. If we didn't have a clever lawyer like Dalimpuf who exposed that this guy has got shares in this company, that judge was prepared to preside over a court where he knows very well that he's conflicted. How many of them do that? There is nothing wrong with constitutional democracy. I don't agree with parliamentary democracy because politicians will always be politicians. We've got a very good structure, 3 arms of the state: the legislature, the executive, the judiciary. They must monitor each other and make each other accountable. There is nothing wrong with the 13 judges at the Constitutional Court. We must make sure that no wrong judges get to capture the Constitutional Court, like they are trying to do with Unterhalter. There is a white man called Unterhalter who represented Ramaphosa at Marikana. Every time there is a vacancy at the Constitutional Court, he applies because he wants to go to the Constitutional Court. As to why he's doing that, even when he fails to succeed, I don't know. But the reality is, he's a lawyer of Ramaphosa. When they say a person is a lawyer, they mean he's your friend. Because when you get into trouble, the best person to spend more time with is a lawyer. That lawyer is your friend because when you tell him or her the story, you must tell the whole story and the whole truth so that he can find a way of navigating your story. So how can Ramaphosa tell that guy about his life and then later become president and want his lawyer to become a constitutional judge? There's nothing wrong with that court. Let's make sure we save it and protect it from being captured by Ramaphosa loyalists, by loyalists of capital, but by women and men who are neutral, who don't rule in favor or in fear because the person who's appearing before them is a president. Mukwevani has won a case. I've never seen anything like that. I don't know if it's governed by hatred or what, where you win a court case at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. before 12 o'clock, a leave to appeal has been filed. Because once they file leave to appeal, it suspends that judgment that favors Mkhwebane. Meaning she can't go back to office until the appeal is heard. Before 12, same day. But they will never deliver any service delivery like that anywhere in 24 hours. But when it comes to defending Ramaphosa, by 12 o'clock, leave to appeal was filed. And then Koleka wrote a letter to the public protector, don't come to the office, there is leave to appeal. So, we must make sure that these shenanigans are exposed and our courts are not captured. They don't want the EFF to participate in the JSE because that's where the EFF exposes the corrupt, exposes the racist, exposes the friendship of these judges and business people and politicians. They say, no, politicians must get out of JSC so that it can only be professionals who appoint judges. But they don't say the president must not appoint judges because JSC recommends to the president. You don't want politicians here, but you want politicians at the end of the product to be the one that signs to appoint a judge. They must choose what they want. We can't be politicians when we are in the JSC, and then once the job is done, and then they find us in the office of the president, we're not politicians, we're a president. The reality is they don't want the EFF. They are masquerading as if it's an intellectual debate as to what becomes the role of politicians in the process of selection of judges. Why? They want to capture the judiciary. There's an organization called CASAC. There's an organization called Helen Suzman Foundation. There is an organization called OUTA. They are looking after white interests. If a decision does not go in their favor, then they take it to court because they know they've captured the courts. When you arrive there, you will not succeed against them. Someone was telling me yesterday about Trang of SC that he has never lost a court case at the Constitutional Court. He's a white judge. And even where he loses, there are no punitive costs against him. It's just normal costs. But we know that there are black African judges, lawyers, SCs, who when they appear, you know before they open their mouth that these ones are going to lose because they are so and so. And these ones are going to win because they are so and so. We don't want a judiciary like that. We want a judiciary that is blind, doesn't see what is before. It can only hear arguments. And on the basis of those arguments, they can take a decision that is not biased to anyone. So we're fighting this battle at the JSC. We're fighting this battle in Parliament to defend the independence of Parliament and the independence of the judiciary and the independence of Chapter 9 institutions, which the ANC wants to destroy and put under their control. Look at the Reserve Bank. The most professionally run institution has now been compromised to a point where it is unable to answer a simple question. Do you know of the dollars that passed through you into South Africa? They ask a wrong person. The answer is yes or no, because they just put an ID number there and then they will say, we never had such a transaction with this person in the last 5 years or so. No, they write long letters of explaining themselves. Where is SARS? Where is NPA? Where are the Hawks? Where is the Office of the Public Protector? All institutions that we thought are going to be collapsed under Zuma are being collapsed now. under Ramaphosa, who was elected in the ticket of accountability and transparency, who always says to us, I will answer any question. I'm not scared of anything I've got to hide. When he arrives in parliament, he says, I can't answer that question. At a place where he's supposed to answer, he says, I've answered somewhere else. You don't answer anywhere else as a president except in parliament. That's why there is a provision made that over this period, the president will from time to time come and answer questions in parliament, because those who came before us knew that parliament must hold the president accountable. He's now refusing to answer to parliament, and ANC fools are clapping hands, celebrating a person who undermines the independence of legislature, which must hold him accountable. Fighters, we want to thank you for your discipline, which was demonstrated here. And we also appreciate the level of maturity that was displayed by those who had the interest of contesting for this or that position. Because many people, after losing, they behave in a particular manner. We haven't seen that yet. The EFF is the only organization, by the way, which can have a conference where all its members attend and no one is in court to try and interdict the conference of the EFF. That's how much we love our organization. I was told that SABC doesn't cover us the way they cover ANC conferences. They just come and take a snippet and leave. They must know that we have been here before, and you are taking us back to where we were, where you choose ANC over news. What must be reported is the news, not which party. Is this party newsworthy? If the answer is yes, you must do it. Now I hear that there is a new guy there called Mushweshwe Munare, who says he will never cover the stories that are against the ANC. If that is his attitude, you must tell him that his days are numbered at the SABC. We will never allow anyone to come and micromanage the SABC in favor of any political party. We don't care about these others, whether they cover us or not. But the SABC must cover us. It has got no option but to cover us. Why? We have worked for it. We are a party in parliament. We are the third largest party in parliament. And the SABC can't behave as if they don't know that. So you are starting Lea Toma. Yele Tomang Legacy Fage. Karbati Libabanchi before you, and they left without saying goodbye. So if you are going to start on that wrong footing of undermining the EFF and taking cameras of the SABC to conferences of drunkards who don't know why they are meeting, who have no mission to save South Africa, but you can't take them to where there are sober people debating the future of South Africa. You are declaring a war against wrong people. And we are prepared to engage in that war to defend the SABC. It is not a state broadcaster. It's a public broadcaster. There is a huge difference. This conference sitting here, there is a huge public interest in Gauteng as to what is the EFF going to come out of that conference with. And therefore, you are denying our people access to information because of partisan politics in the SABC. Please be warned. We will not allow that nonsense to repeat itself. Le ska bona re khomotse re beaver la nana re chabantwa ntwe re chabang ke go fenywa. Rena re nyako phela re fentše. We don't want to lose when we engage in a war. We always want to come out victorious. So don't start that which you will not win. So fighters, let's make sure that when we leave here, whatever differences we had are going to end when we exit that door. Once we sing the national anthem, once the chairperson gives acceptance speech, we're done. We now have leadership, and we must all, without failure, rally behind that leadership. Thank you very much.
Amandla. Amandla. Viva EFF Gauteng, viva. Viva EFF Gauteng, viva. Viva EFF Gauteng, viva. Comrades, we are going to call the provincial chairperson.
We are going to call the provincial chairperson to give his acceptance speech.
Amandla. Amandla. We are going to call the provincial chairperson of the EFF in Gauteng to give his political acceptance speech. Amandla. Amandla. Highway 2. Highway 2. Long live the EFF, long live. Long live the EFF, long live. Long live the Commander-in-Chief, Julius Selomalema, long live. Long live the Commander-in-Chief, Julius Selomalema, long live. Long live the Deputy President, Floyd Shivambu, long live. Long live the Deputy President, Floyd Shivambu, long live. Long live the EFF in Gauteng, 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 long live. Long live the EFF in Ekurhuleni, long live. Long live the EFF in Siribeng, long live. Long live the EFF in the West Rand, long live. Long live the EFF in Tshwane, long live. Long live the EFF in Johannesburg, long live. Forward to unity, forward. Forward to unity, forward. Amandla. Highway 2. Thank you very much. To the Commander-in-Chief and President of the People's Movement, the Economic Freedom Fighters, Comrade President Julius Selomalema, the Deputy President, Floyd Shivambu, the convener of deployees of the CCT deployees, Commissar Neilwe, members of the Central Command Team, commissars, fighters, and leaders of the mighty July movement. The newly elected collective leadership of the EFF in Gauteng, which is the newly elected PCT. I think I speak on behalf of this collective that we are extremely humbled by the responsibility and the call to serve that is given to us as this collective. And in the first task ahead, it is to ensure that our branches are functioning as we navigate to unseat the former Liberation Party that has become parasitic, corrupt, fatal, with impunity. The responsibility of this collective leadership comes at a time when the province in particular faces enormous challenges in our communities that need a leadership that cares, a leadership that is always on the side of the poor, of the vulnerable, and the dejected masses of our people. This responsibility comes at a time when there is a serious need for ethical leadership, as you've already spoken to, President. A leadership that is sensitive to the urgency of the need for economic freedom in our lifetime. We could not pass as well to also acknowledge and note that this comes at a time that the biggest Zamazama, called Elizabeth, has died. Yet she gets celebrated throughout the world. This is a woman who has even disowned her own flesh and bloodline on the basis that she was worried that there is a possibility that the grandson can bear a black child into their royal family. Her continuous hatred for black people could have never been difficult to see, even for the blind. Her ruthless colonialist character and influence is exactly what has gotten us here, as you've already said, as the oppressed and dejected, with increased revelation of black on black violence. In actual fact, the crown that sits on her head, the Star of Africa, is a sign of imperialism at itself. It is a sign that states that she has and always thought that she's superior to Africans. This is a jewel that was taken and stolen away from its rightful owners, the Africans themselves. As black people were the ones who remained at the center of the onslaught of colonialism and imperialism sanctioned by her and her family. She led this particular life, which even if we wanted, we can never celebrate. Fellow fighters, the victimization of the poor and migrants by toy soldiers that are terrorizing our communities, sponsored by the elite to turn poor against poor and black against black, is issues the EFF must take a firm stance on as Gauteng. The Green Saloon gang, who chant fixing South Africa, yet they harbor criminals amongst themselves, must be challenged and never find space or any chance, in order to ultimately close the ranks and become the only viable alternative organization that has buried all counter-revolutionaries. Why was Babika assassinated? Why did Tembisa Hospital spend over 850 million on dubious payments, flouting all checks and balances which put in place by this neoliberal procurement framework? Was it because migrants were taking beds of people in Tembisa Hospital that David Makura, Nonomathemba Mokheti, Nobandile Masugu aided and abetted corrupt deals at a peak of a pandemic, working hand in glove with a Congolese leader in Eguruleni? The message of the EFF on the borderless Africa must never be distorted by the media and equally society. As we are politically conscious, we must always note that the borderless Africa does not mean that we are saying that it is only the borders of South Africa that must fall. The positive impact of ease of traveling for economic benefit and social enhancement is what ought to motivate us in telling what our people on the ground need to know. The need for one Africa accounting to one legislature, institution, one army, one currency is what will sporadically give economic freedom in our lifetime. There is a message that we must go and carry and take to Alexandra and take to Tembisa. We can never attain economic freedom in isolation from the rest of this continent and its states. Just now, Namibia and Botswana have eased off passport need to travel, and this will see an increase in infrastructure development and economic activity amongst these said countries. We must therefore condemn everything that reeks of self-hate and forever placing black people at a permanent receiving end of pain, oppression, torture, and indignity. We are the children of Bantu Biko, and we are logically to believe that black consciousness must always reign supreme. As things stand, fighters, majority of the youth remains unemployed in Gauteng. Almost half of the population has no food security. Approximately 11.45 million people, they depend on social grants. Only 5% of the country's municipalities are financially stable, with more than a half of the 257 in financial ruins. Gauteng must be the vanguard against gender-based violence in public and in private, and call out abusers even amongst our own rank and file. Fellow fighters, we must build a solid organization if we are to confront the challenges that face our communities and provide leadership. And Gauteng will be number one, leading the 1 million membership campaign. Fighters, much of the degeneration that we witness in our communities, in our regions, and in the province in itself can and must be resolved by this generation of fighters. Our task is to help build solid alternatives in each and every single ward, in each and every single street, in each and every single township, in each and every single VD. The 2021 local government elections lesson is the importance of having an organization and branches in good standing across the entire province. The EFF in Gauteng received approximately 805,000 votes in 2016 local government election, translating to 11.3%. In 2021, the EFF received 631,000 votes, translating to a mere 11.9%. In other words, we have approximately 175,000 voters, that did not vote for the EFF in the last election, but they did in 2016. We got to answer that question as to why and find the reasons, and not only that, but formulate a program of action based on the resolutions that we have adopted here, in ensuring that those people, they come back and they vote for the EFF and they double. It is our duty to find out, recruit them through prayed up membership, and activate them at branches in Gauteng towards the victory in 2024. The EFF must continue to grow in quality and in quantity, fighters. Even beyond all of us, Gauteng must grow. Ekurhuleni must grow. Tshwane must grow. Sidibeng must grow. Western must grow. Johannesburg must grow. The EFF in Gauteng will devise mechanisms to gain ground in Gauteng and further influence the downfall of the ANC, so that the losses of the ANC, they become the direct gains of the EFF. Logically, we must zoom into strategic townships such as Soweto, Mamelodi, Katoras, Alexandra, and Temisa, amongst those, in order to deliver decisive victory. We are very happy that one of the resolutions is that we must have permanent offices in Soweto, we must have permanent offices in Tembisa, we must have permanent offices in Katoras of the EFF. The EFF, logically, we will zoom. The EFF won, and we are all expected to align in one voice and reaffirm our commitment to hold office, and that we shall hold this office until the term ends, and we will not abscond from our mandate. Personal differences must not be institutionalized. We have a duty to have a unified organization that will carry out its program of action and the realization of economic freedom in our lifetime. Fighters, we must be better organized as an organization, as was spoken by the Deputy President in his opening address. Our administration must be on point and the planning must be executed in time. Our offices throughout the province must be reachable and accessible and show a professional posture. Public representatives must now gear up to understand that they are the first point of defense of the organization at all material conditions, and that their work must never replace the duties and functions of branch structures of the EFF. Women abuse remains rife, and it must never find expression in the EFF in Gauteng. EFF men must equally lead that program. This organization must be a refuge for women and spearhead their emancipation thereof. And this should be a commitment we must never postpone as Gauteng. We note the resurgence of NGOs and NPOs who do crime prevention program as a direct vote of no confidence against the SAPS in the country and in the province. Therefore, we must make sure that we close the ranks and force all crime alleviation institutions to be on their feet and be proactive in ensuring that they combat crime. We are also not blind to the white supremacist DA, which has proven to be delinquents in governance. Yet the media continues to posture them as though that they are excelling. The unlawful conduct of the former Speaker of Council in Joburg, the utterances of the Tshwane mayor to interfere in the tendering system to benefit his friends, and the recent manipulation of council resolution by the DA administration and Speaker in Eguruleni on requirements of HOD posts in terms of requirements are just some of the examples we draw highlight in weaknesses and the bankruptcy of the principles of the DA. The concept of leaders leaving the EFF is to some extent worrisome, and only because there remains no one who has left and remains sane and not wanting to come back to the EFF. We can make lots of examples because this organization, Kia Modimo le Badimo, and represents the aspirations and the last hope for the rejected masses. When you turn your back and walk away from this organization, which is beyond personal gain and individual aspirations, you have angered all those who walked before us. You have angered Che Guevara, Kwame Nkrumah, Lenin, Karl Marx, Thomas Sankara, Winnie Mandela, Frantz Fanon, Utla Khafa. We appreciate the confidence shown in the collective that has emerged. And as we take the mandate, we believe that the first task would also to grow the organization in quality and in quantity. This will be done through a continued membership recruitment and registration of members of society, which must never be devoid of political education. Fellow fighters, we may have come to this Provincial People's Assembly with different leadership collective preferences, and we must appreciate the discipline of all demonstrated throughout the commission, including during the election of this collective leadership. In this third RPA, we have demonstrated, unlike other organizations who take weeks to adopt credentials for a conference, that we are disciplined revolutionaries and we do not disagree merely just to disagree. We say this in reference to the recent ANC provincial conferences and regional conferences, which only displayed nothing but factionalism and extreme disunity. We are clear that Congolose continues to harbor self-centered and resource-seeking leadership that only serves for the purpose of political expediency. We must condemn these trends and motives and further bar them from existing amongst ourselves, fighters. Let's unite and move in one voice as we shift gear towards total victory in 2024. Our first and foremost preoccupation is building strong branches of the EFF throughout the province that are anchored by popular grassroots formations and struggles and be the vanguard of the community and workers' struggle. Those who led before us have a greater understanding not only of the structures, but on how to grow and stabilize the EFF. And we are appealing to them that the day we call them and ask them for assistance, they will heed that call. If we do that correctly, fighters, the alternative is the betterment of our people. That for almost 3 decades, the political power that was transferred for the black majority has not translated into economic freedom for the African and the black particular in Gauteng. This is correctly pointed out in the EFF founding manifesto that I quote, post-1994, government has maintained the apartheid and white supremacist state with the consequences that majority in effect have become a voting but yet a powerless majority, unquote. We must wake up every day to seek to change the lives and impact on lives of our people directly and personally, not just through rhetoric. A simple food hamper, buying of clothes and shoes, providing a meal, providing a wheelchair, or simply just assisting in transporting elders and the sick to hospitals and clinics. That is what we should be doing, directly touching the lives of our people in Gauteng. Fighters, we must also ensure that we are going to ascend to Citibank and perform oversight as well as be project managers as the EFF in ensuring that waste and sewage systems are out and put in place there. The EFF representatives must also never abscond and make excuses of government work to do the work of the EFF. We must also ascend to Tshwane and be project managers to ensuring that Roadville project so that it is speedily done to provide water for the people of Hammanskraal. We must be in Soweto permanently to engage society and the masses who are relatively unemployed and young and have little opportunity to self-develop and to education. I grew up as Olawan in Soweto. The level of drug abuse amongst my peers has reached high levels. The number of youth who are in retail spaces continuously fighting to work in the shop floor only to spend their salaries on transport is a phenomenon that must be addressed aggressively. We need to establish an alignment of the regional GTU and provincial GTU to synergize the work as you have directed us in the resolutions. We must engage on the backlog of housing, the opening of 24-hour clinics in Gauteng, the maintenance of provincial roads, and do oversight on Kokta Department and Salga provincial structures. We will ensure that we develop a self-funding and self-sustenance model as the EFF in Gauteng so as to ensure that we can carry out the programs of the EFF with ease. We say this with reminiscence of the declaration by the Commander-in-Chief that this is the year of the branch, and we must continuously recruit membership and ultimately rally our people behind the banner of the EFF in order to consolidate the ground towards socialist power. Lastly, I must clarify the saying, angeke balunge noma bengeza bebaningi, in an attempt to prevent a further misconception. This is a clear diagnosis of our political landscape in that it highlights the direct confrontation we are faced with from many political parties in South Africa, in Gauteng, and the media. If you look at it properly, you will realize that every political formation in Gauteng is diametrically opposed to the EFF, in that the EFF remains the only party that shakes the status quo and challenges the establishment. This beloved organization of ours remains the only vehicle to change through which we are going to attain our full independence and economic freedom, free from any colonial bondage. It has thus become the establishment's commitment to tarnish the image of the organization through their coveted white-owned media, their stooges who pose as leaders of political parties while they are just mere fronts. It is therefore on this premise that we say, kubo bonke, angeke balunge noma bengeza bebaningi. We want all of them combined. The EFF is indeed the future, and the future looks bright. We commit to be loyal to the movement and to the rejected masses of Gauteng. We will ensure that we carry out these resolutions as you have adopted in plenary without fail. Amandla! Hawe! Two! Salute! Angizwa madoda. Angizwa madoda. Amandla. Awethu. Long live President and Commander-in-Chief, long live. Long live President and Commander-in-Chief, long live. Long live GP, long live. Long live the EFF, long live. Long live the EFF in Gauteng, long live. Comrades, thank you very much. My task, it's very small. My task, it's very small, is to now call upon the Provincial Secretary of the EFF in Gauteng, most capacitated, capable, dedicated, and more organized Provincial Secretary of the EFF in Gauteng. Comrades, GPS.
Amandla, awethu, matla, arona, manda, ashu. Long live the EFF, long live. Long live the EFF, long live. Fighters, my task here is very simple. Ngithanda ukunibonga nonke, our newly elected PCT, our regions, the CCT deployees in Gauteng, the staff members, the delegates, our guests. Sithanda ukunibonga nonke, Raleboga, for being with us here, having conducted yourself with the highest level of discipline. We have never seen it in our lifetime. We are taking this opportunity continue building the EFF at the branch level so that we take power in Gauteng. Our announcement are as follows. Alutluambu fighters, those that are still having your room cards, may you come and leave it there so that we are able to take them to the reception. Other than that, our conference, if edile, may we go home. Let's let's crash. No one was beaten. We are all 100% the way. Amandla. Thank you very much.